Well, I know that's the title of my presentation, but since the as above, so below sentence is like the umbrella for this conference, I was reflecting a little bit on the sentence. And by reflecting on the meaning of the sentence, as above, so below, some words came out like correspondence, like there is a correspondence between two different worlds, the one which is above, the cosmos, the microcosmos, and the one below, the earth. And because there is a correspondence between these two worlds, there's something about interconnection. They must be interconnected. But then there are two different realms, so there is a polarity. But that polarity between the correspondence and the interconnection is looking for unity. And when we connect with the word unity, then we've got the sense that everything makes sense in a way. So there is meaning somewhere. And by realizing we are not alone, we are not separated, then again the word belonging could be underlying this as above, so below. But this doesn't happen by itself. Thank you. But this doesn't happen by itself. I think we participate on the whole process. This is why the word synchronicity is important here again, like whatever happens outside has to be connected with something going inside. So by looking at reality, and because, as Lily said, the universe doesn't speak in words, it speaks in symbols. So we have the possibility of interpreting these symbols. And then by looking outside, in a way, we're looking as well at ourselves, if the whole play is about a mirror. And when all this happens, when we find a meaning and we have a sense of belonging, we may have this sensation that this happens out of a space and time in a different dimension. And we can broaden our awareness. In fact, the sentence as above, so below in astrology could be very much related to the 9th house, that area where we learn something new and then we open our mind to a different perspective and reality. And suddenly everything is in more harmony and we can find some balance. But because I'm here to talk about a little bit about my PhD, I just started in February. By the way, I've got a deal with Nick. If I mention his name in this presentation over 10 times, his feedbacks will be more positive in the supervision meetings. So because I'm doing the presentation, I need someone counting how many times I'm going to mention him. Well, here we've on the literature review, I came across Demetrio Santos. He was an astrologer, Spanish astrologer, and he wrote an amazing book called Introduction to History of Astrology. It is an amazing book. He mentions over 500 astrologers. He starts from the very beginning, scarf in bones, and then he ends up on the 1980s. The book was written in 1986. So when I was in the annual astrological conference in Barcelona 3 weeks ago, I recommended everybody on the audience, do please read the book, but the last page. And why is that? Because when we go to the last page of his book, then he says as follows: from Jung, and consequently to the wide development of psychology, astrologers have moved towards this interpretation of astral influences. Such a choice has its rights and its wrongs. One can fall into the trap of attributing to any of the variables of a specific weight according to the theory one is trying to prove. So here we have something that is common to the critics to astrology, especially to modern astrology, that astrologers, we say abstract general things to clients and people, so everybody can be identified with that. And he was an astrologer himself, but more trying to keep the line of the natural astrology, scientific astrology. Then he goes on and he says, the revival of astrology. That's another idea on Nick's PhD, cosmology, prophecy and cosmology. Without no proof that astrology is increasing, we mentioned that astrology is living a revival. So he says, the revival of astrology has favorable consequences, but not everything is positive. Under the protection of the general euphoria and scientific findings, some naive spirits and others on the lookout for the opportunity for profit feed people's dream with exorbitant promises. About solar astrology, he says, brings with it the withdrawal of the most intelligent or prepared, who thinks that if such is a science and gives such fruits, it is not worthwhile to delve into it. So here we can see another critic that astrologers, we are not intelligent. And he mixes modern astrology, psychological astrology, solar astrology. He goes on and he says, at the same time, personal consultations and astrological counselors are appearing and proliferating, some of them with acute psychological gifts, but more like the substitution of the religious confessor or the psychological counselor among people who have lost their religion. So here again, we've got another idea on the critics of astrology, that astrologers, we fall into astrology because we are lost and we don't have a religion to guide us to wherever we want to go. And finally, he says, and all this does more harm than the critics of astrology. He's criticizing astrology himself anyway. Nowadays, scientific magic has appeared in which defectively prepared minds are trapped in a pompous terminology, deducing that in modern science everything is possible, and its disseminators convince the reader that we are in the land of Hauha, where everything can be achieved. The flowering is such that the arrival of winter is obligatory in order to make only the fittest survive. So from a male-ish Darwinist perspective, only the stronger and better astrologers have to survive, not the rest. By the way, Jauja was a city in Peru, and in the 16th and 17th century in Spain, when Spain was invading America, they met that city, and in that city in Jauja there was plenty of gold and silver and everything. So all Spanish kids, we have grown at home listening to dad and mom telling us from now and then, every time we wanted to to go to a party, to have some money, and they say, this is not the land of Jauja, so meaning that we cannot have everything. Well, that was 1986. But I came across this paper. I couldn't find the exact date, but as from the bibliography, it has been written after 2012. It comes from Lund University, and what they did, they launched an online survey. They got 254 responses on Facebook, and they correlate belief in astrology with personality traits. And despite the limitations of the study, because they don't even know people participating, whether they knew astrology, they practice astrology. So their conclusion was that belief in astrology is on the rise, again, that idea, although the reasons behind this are unclear, so weird to believe in astrology, that we have to try to find the explanation. We tested whether individual personality traits could predict such epistemically unfounded beliefs. The survey consisted in 4 instruments. 2 were mixing belief in astrology and 5 personality traits. And what they found is that narcissism was surprisingly the strongest predictor, and intelligence show a negative relationship with belief in astrology. So again, our aim with the present study, they said, was to contribute to an increased understanding of the individual differences and unfounding epistemic beliefs, such as belief in astrology. Here we've got another idea developed by Nick in his PhD on how this belief-neutral word becomes negative and pejorative when we talk about astrology. To believe in astrology is bad because astrology is not good. So not maintaining that neutrality. So they even titled the paper, "Even the Stars Think I Am Superior." Okay, so we are not intelligent, we lost religion, and now we know we are narcissist. Whatever this is. So in this context, obviously based on previous studies, my PhD starts a little bit as from the question, why do you still believe in astrology if it is such an unfounded epistemologically or weird thing? The intention to examine the role and appeal of astrology in the modern West, to explore wider debates concerning the nature of astrology, and investigate the role of new technologies and social media in popularizing astrology. Since Nick did his PhD in 2004, too many things have happened, especially with pandemic in 2020. So the idea is to make some contribution to this. The methodology will be a combination of qualitative and quantitative. Not qualitative, not only to understand reality among participants, but also to design the questionnaire, not only based on the literature review, but also on whatever comes out of a blank sheet from the qualitative. I don't want to say too much in here because I only have 30 minutes less now, and I need to fast because I would like to share with you some results from a tiny, small research that I had the opportunity to carry on 3 weeks ago in Barcelona. So, as I said, I was in the conference, the annual astrological conference in Spain, and I launched a survey among people who book for the conference. Okay, so among the demographics, the universe there were 150 people. I got answer from 50. So taking into account that the universe is very close thing, so it's not a bad number. The average age of participants at the Congress were 40 years old, and the average of their astrological experience was 18 years. Because the first question, one of the questions in the demographics was, when was the first time you got involved with astrology? So I could make a calculation and build 3 groups. The people involved in astrology less than 10 years, between 10 and 20 years, and over 20 years. So we've got 42% less than 10 years, and 38% above 20 years. 80% were women, 20% were men. That's in line with the proportion by gender in schools or students doing some research. I also asked for the status of astrology. I asked, are you studying in the proper astrological school? Are you studying by yourself? Are you a professional astrologer? And that's what I got. 42% were studying at the proper school, 36% were professionals, 80% were studying by themselves, 4% were amateurs. And among those 36%, in the conference, there were 78% were part-time astrologers, and only 22% were full-time astrologers. So that allowed me to share this data here, 24, with some data recalled by Frances in her PhD about the impact of technology in astrology. There is a difference, okay, because as we can see, it's only the 8% compared with the average of 30% in her study, 2009-2012, 30% full-time astrologers and 35 part-time astrologers. I wouldn't conclude that there is less professionals in astrologers in Spain, because, I mean, this is not representative of the full astrologers collective anyway. There could be a cultural difference, but also, the profile of that conference could be different from others. But anyway, in many places in the world, people tend to blame karma of failures and fears and everything. In Spain, we tend to blame Inquisition. So that, Dark Ages without a tribunal from the church being so oppressive, I think there's something cultural in Spain of being afraid of doing heresy, So there could be also a cultural change. By the way, the study was about the age of Aquarius. Again, I wanted to share in Spanish some results from Nick's PhD, and the research showed that 92% of participants believe that either we already are in the age of Aquarius or we are in the transition to the age of Aquarius, despite the fact that, according to Nick, this is an invented tradition and precession of equinox have never been used for forecasting. And in fact, the research shows that there is a mixture between the precession of equinox and forecasting by these planetary cycles. There was a mixture between Jupiter and Saturn in Aquarius and Pluto being in Aquarius with the entrance of the age of Aquarius. There were not many differences by men, women, and experience in astrology. It seems that the more we are in astrology, we less believe in the age of Aquarius. And I ask to what extent people agree or not agree with different questions, trying to see a little bit of the belief system. So here what we have very briefly is that we do agree. Okay, 4 is totally agree. So we can see here that we do agree with the idea that the change of era is progressive, is not after a violent event like the pre-millenarism. We tend to think that we are in a maximal social and political decay. We do agree that life evolves in spiral and it repeats itself. The strongest agreement with that idea that the change depends on general change depends on our individual change. We do agree that all religions have a common root. And then we less agree with that positivism idea, which is that we believe do we believe that we evolve always in a positive way. That's the point where people most disagree, together with the idea that the universe has a purpose, that we are coming back to a golden age and origin. So just to mention two differences, men tend to be more pre-millenarist. So men were significantly more agree with the idea that there's going to be a change of era after a violent event. While women, we tend to think that the universe and evolution has a purpose, which is to go back to an origin, to a golden age. But coming back to the demographics, two more results. There was one question, who introduced you to astrology? And here we've got that 28% went to astrology because of friends, 24% by social media, 18% by visiting an astrologer, 12% through a teacher, 10% by curiosity, and 8% through a family member. And here, this 24% that got into astrology because they follow social media becomes 42% in men and 52% among the junior astrologers. By the way, between juniors, people being less than 10 years, and medium astrologers, there was no difference in age, okay? There's no correlation that younger people were less time in astrology. So it's not a difference of age, it's a difference of being new in astrology, recently new in astrology. So from a marketing perspective, that's very interesting to design a target. And final result is about this. I ask, what is the latest studies you finish by the time of the conference? And then what we've got here, we've got like that 80% of the respondents were either graduate or postgraduate. Only 20% were undergraduate, and we have to take into account that there were young people that were studying, they were at university by being at the conference at the same time, so they didn't have time to finish graduation. So, and that 80% was 100% among men and 100% among junior. So, it seems that astrology attracts intelligent people too. The traditional criticism of modern astrology is out of date, and that social media is increasing in importance. So here I am, following Nick's guidance, who says, because knowing the social contribution of astrology implies a greater cultural knowledge in society we live in. So let's see if I can do some contribution to understand the social role of astrology, and if there is, I don't know, let's see what it comes out anyway. And let me finish reflecting back on the sentence, as above, so below, normally adding the sentence as within, so without, and represented by the cross. To me, still this idea looks like very vertical and with masculine and a lot of duality. And I saw this picture once, and it resonated more with what I think could be the as above, so below, actually. This is why the title of this presentation was Everything, Everywhere, All at Once. And let me tell you a 1-minute story about the hand, Irulegi's hand. Because when I was on the train yesterday to Swansea, and I was looking at all the panels already in Wales, seeing Wales, and by the way, when at 10 o'clock, when the conference started, Jupiter was in Gemini in the 9th house. So I forgot to mention that. So when I was on the train looking at the panels, everything was in Welsh and English. So there was half of reality I couldn't understand, and then was half of reality I could understand. And that reminded me to my origins, because I'm Basque and I come from the Basque country, and if you go to Bilbao and you want to visit Guggenheim Museum, then you will see that half of reality is in Basque and half is in Spanish. But I am accustomed to it, so there's no problem there. So suddenly the image of Irulegi's hand came to my mind. And because the universe doesn't speak in words, but it does speak in symbols, I said, oh, that's an image. What is it? So I let the image within, and suddenly, because this is an archaeological discovery made in 2021, presented in 2022, from the 1st century before Christ, okay, from the Iron Age. It's in bronze, is a hand, and he's got an inscription on it. As from up to 2021, all academics agree with the idea that Basque were illiterate, because the Basque was only spoken but not written. There was not proof of a single word in Basque. Anyway, so when this appeared, one of the only word in the hand was Soreneku, and it sounded like a Basque word. It was discovered in Pamplona, when Sanfermines are running right now. I could be here if Francis wouldn't have invited me to the conference. So this hand was an important discovery with that word in it. And what do we have here? We have a hand ruled and associated with Mercury. Mercury corresponds to word and language. And you know which was the word written in the hand. This Soreneku has the same root of the word lac, related to Jupiter. So again, the whole idea of Gemini, Mercury, Jupiter, 3rd house, 9th house, happening in 2021, bringing the past to present. So although we feel it within, that everything all the time is happening at the same time, all the symbols are there, we still have to study that reality from an academic perspective. So thank you very much.